Welcome to Top of the Drops, Gala's weekly show featuring the best in Web3 music. I'm Taco, your host, and I'm still excited about summer. Coming off a holiday weekend, I'm wearing a shirt with gulls on it. I've got my summer beard growing. Let's go. This week, I interviewed Drex Carter, a new Gala artist, and that should be great, so stick around. But first, obviously, here is Dropbot.
Thank you, Taco. That's right, the Dropbot is back, aka Droppius Bottus, aka Lil Droppy, to bring you the hottest Web3 drops of the week from Gala Music. And first up, we've got Beach Crimes with their song, Give Me the Night, coming to you from Sound XYZ. The song is about an on and off roller coaster relationship where it's almost become routine to break up and get back together again. But for one night, you just want to forget about the 1,000 reasons why you break up and are just asking for one reason to stay. There's No Other by Felly, also on Sound XYZ. Felly says, it's a love song at its core. I've always wanted to be picky with love songs, just because I feel like everything's been said. I was happy to blend a few different pockets and sounds into this one. And also really like singing in falsetto, especially flowing in falsetto. All I Know by Lil Extra on Gala Music, produced by his longtime collaborator, Kada. Lil Extra's track features an introspective look into relationships and betrayal, blending upbeat music with personal lyrics. Extra brings a punchy, expressive flow and thoughtful lyrics to his latest emo rap effort. We'll Die in California by X Lee. Sami Arriaga and Ray Isla are making history with the first ever country music duet on the blockchain, in collaboration with TK and the amazing community at Campfire. Die Wälder by Bray on Gala Music. Bray made a breakthrough with his single Me Siento Bien in 2014. Following this success, he released his critically acclaimed debut mixtape, Abundancia. Throughout his career, Bray has collaborated with renowned artists such as Joyce Santana, Bad Bunny, and Ozuna. With 13 million Spotify listeners, Bray is a rising star in Latin music. That's all from the Dropbot, aka Lil Droppy. Tune in next week for more of the same. Back to you in the studio, Taco.
Thanks, Dropbot. I feel like if you were a person, we'd probably get along. I bet that we'd be friends. But I don't think we're far enough along in AI yet for people to be friends with the bots. We'll get there, I'm assuming, right? So, here's the deal. Tom, who you've all met, came to me at the end of last week and he said, Taco, we need more giveaways. And I said, yeah, of course we need more giveaways. He told me to draw 3 random names from prior Top of the Drops giveaway lists, and we're going to give all those people an earning NFT track, just for funsies. I did it. The 3 people who are winners are Hogzilla, who I know from the community, Kasia, who I know from the community, and Baked Bean, who I don't know from the community, but I should? I don't know if Baked Bean, have you ever been in my Discords? Stop by, say hello. This is the perfect way to introduce yourself. I know we'd get along. I'm from New England. We love baked beans. Okay, moving on. I did an interview with Drex Carter, who is dropping his very first track with us today. He's great. I really enjoyed this interview. Check it out. Drex Carter, happy to have you on the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, brother. How you doing?
I am doing great. Are you still in Florida, or have you moved already?
Nope, still in Florida. I'm in Orlando, Florida, but I travel enough. Stay
Ready
busy.
to move? Ready to get out of there?
Kinda. I mean, the part of me who grew up here wants to go, but I travel and I get that enjoyment. But I think at every point in your journey, eventually you end up making the move. But it's got everything I need, like for travel and stuff, and just for cost of living and just like my art. Like I have everything I need, so it's kind of tough. Like traveling is becoming like when I was a kid, it was like everything, and like I mean, still like I just got back from Iceland and like I live to travel. Honestly, like I built my art around being able to travel. But it's like hitting that tipping point where it's becoming a hindrance of like what I can create. It's like gets in the way sometimes.
Decent airports though in Orlando, right?
Yeah, that's honestly what's keeping me here. Like I like the ability to have a good system.
You know what people probably didn't want from this interview is me asking you about Orlando Airport. So we can talk about music.
Yeah.
Sometimes I get sidetracked, and I was just like, "Hey, wait a minute, Taco. What are you talking about, man?" So you've been doing music for a while, and I don't know what your threshold for big deal is, but you feel like a big deal to me. Like you've got a good following. People know who you are. This is what you do full time. You're a full time artist. When did you first get into music?
I've been making music for probably like 10 years now. Like I started when I was like 13, so maybe a little longer. But when I was like 13, I didn't listen to music at all really growing up. And then I kind of discovered it. Like it was always around, obviously, but then I discovered it of like, oh, you can make this when I was like 13. From there, I started out, I was just writing. I was like always songwriting, and I think it was like something I wanted to do when I was a kid, but I didn't really know it until I had like that unlocked feeling of like, oh, there's more to this than just like singing. There's more to this than just like, what meets the eye. And like I found kind of my own path of like creativity within it, and just fell in love with it for the next, I'd say 7 years of just like learning, all the differences that like really make a good song. When I came into it, the only thing I heard was lyrics. Some people hear lyrics first or beat production first, and for me it was about like a lot about like learning song structure and like the other side of the music, like the production especially was like a big one. Just like wanting to understand it, even though now like I still I produce a little on all my stuff, but I'm not like the one like fully being like, okay, start to finish, let me produce everything. I've kind of learned what I've liked about the process and what I kind of want to step away and let people who are great and more just like really, really passionate about that piece do that. But yeah, long answer, but short answer, like 10 years.
That's it's always interesting to me that first entry point for artists to be. I think there's a different gear that some people have where you're at whatever the age 13. And you see, oh, this is a thing that I can make, which is different. That's not, when I was 13, I wasn't having those revelations about, oh, like I was listening to music. It wouldn't have occurred to me I could do that. Like I could be a musician.
Yeah. I think that's funny because that's my why. My why is like, don't let anybody tell you what you can or can't do. And I learned that early on. My brother has autism, and like just seeing that from my brother, like, certain things like he just doesn't process the same way we all process. So like we'll be in a restaurant and he'll get up and dance around, and it's like from an early age me seeing that over and over and over again in every situation, and always coming back to the realization of like, oh, it's gonna be all right, and like you can kind of be yourself, and like that seeing how that applies to us as like creatives especially was like really dope to see. Like, and I think I looked at life as creativity before I understood what creativity was and like what art was or whatever. And like also like my grandpa kind of instilled that like, yo, just do whatever you want, like as long as you're happy, chase that and find that passion and that fire, because that's what's going to lead to fulfillment. And just like I think that always really spoke to me, and so that's how I discovered it and why I think I had that lens when I was young. And then I think that's what I'm trying to give back, especially is like my creative message, or my message as a creative is like kind of that, because I think we all have that, even like outside of, I don't know, whoever's watching, like if you're not a creative, or like if you know, whatever you do, I think there's a hint of creativity in all of it, but even if not that, like there's a lot of passion. And I think if you can look at it with like a more zoomed out open mind of like not this or that, and not like one way or the other, but more like, what do you want it to be, like how do you move matter around in a way that like ends up with the result you're happy with. And I think that applies to just all of life.
I like that, and I think that's a good message. I didn't even prep you for that. It just, that makes a lot of sense to me. So how did you get to where you are now musically? What were your influences or the process to get to your current, genre vibe?
Yeah. I think I'll give you the short answer first. It would probably be like Eminem was like some of the earliest stuff I found and like that I fell in love with, because I came from like that writing place, and I thought the songwriting was just insane. Like I had never heard anything like it, and like I didn't know you were allowed to say some of the crazy stuff he had said, but like it was more about the way he used words to me than like what he was saying. And like the message was kind of paralleled of like, hey, I'm just being me. So like there was like when I was a kid and I found music, like what I just said, the why was still don't let anybody tell you what you can or can't do, but it came from an angry place, and it came from like this like passion and this fire of like understanding like I'm always looking around at life and like seeking to do what I want to do, and in a way that's going to lead to like I guess like net good for everything around me. And like it was, I had this anger because everyone was telling me like, no, you need to do this, or you need to do this, and stay within, don't draw outside of the lines, and like these are the guardrails, and you go to school and you do this and you sit down and you be quiet. So I think that spoke to me a lot really early. And then as I grew, I kind of grew out of that, and it turned more into like, don't let anybody. And the let is super important for me now, because it's like all of my growth and wisdom has come from letting people tell me what to do. Like shutting up and listening, and having other creatives or other people that are inspirations be like, hey, like, you should do it, that you could try it this way, and me try it and then be like, whoa, I learned a lot there. Anyway, so Eminem was like an early one, but then I'd say sonically, like that was less about the songs, because like that was like Dre and like all the producers, Dr. Dre and like all the producers around him, that was really making those tick. But I didn't really find that till later. And before I found that, I found like Kanye and Travis Scott and like more melodic leaning stuff, heavily hip hop influenced still though. And then John Bellion, he's like a huge like influence of mine and inspiration. A lot less sonically and more mindset, to be honest. Like now, I think early on it was like kind of he makes a lot of pop records, and like Ghost produces like a lot of songs that you'd never know. But I think I like just the way he lived his life. To be honest, more than anything, was like he to me could have been like the biggest artist in the world. Still could. He has like all the things that make a star, and he kind of to me made a decision actively to not to. And he was like, as a human, there's like more to this experience than like stardom and what that provides. And so that was really cool to me. But you could also hear, like I could hear that in the production. You know what I mean? Like you could hear that honesty, and I thought that was really dope. So those are some of the early ones. I'd say as I grew, then it was like Mac Miller and J. Cole were like really big. Mac being like kind of that, I thought I was gonna blow up in high school. I was rapping in high school being like, oh, I'm gonna be like Mac. And my best friend was from Pittsburgh, and like he was supposed to go to high school where Mac and Wiz Khalifa went. And so like they were big inspirations. And then J. Cole, Kendrick, like really lyrical stuff, Jay-Z along the way. I think I recognized early too that like the stuff that sticks around and that like stands the test of time is people really saying something, and like saying something that like almost like has stakes. I think a lot of artists, because the barrier of entry has been lowered so much, I think the stakes have also been lowered. Meaning like you can almost put yourself out there with less risk. And I liked the artists who put themselves in their art because they were putting the stakes higher and they were putting more risk out there. Because it's like, if you don't like this, you're almost saying like you don't like me and my ideas. And I liked that because it made the ideas more potent, and it made like, it made it less likely that they were telling me something they didn't believe themselves. And so I think that spoke to me a lot.
Yeah, I like that. It is a low barrier to entry right now. Like anybody can upload their music to streaming services. You can all have a go at it, and that probably did lower the stakes. And so that that resonates with me, like artists who are, they're intentionally raising the stakes themselves because they recognize that as being important.
Yeah, and I mean, sometimes like I probably didn't do that out of intention, but subconsciously that aspect probably spoke to me. And like now, honestly, now I am doing that as out of intention. Like, I think your journey is like this, right? And I had a recent down, and when I was in that down, and it was a really bad, like dark place mentally, because I was like, I had just gone through something really, really tough, and I was like, I kind of lost that like fire you have, and within that, I was just like, I'd be in my room all day, like literally not doing anything, which is like saying a lot for me. Like I'm a very passionate person, and I'm like a very like I need to be outside, and like I'm always running around doing stuff, and within that, like I just didn't feel good, and I started making songs again out of like that painful place, and I rediscovered the reason I made songs, and it was like this place, like I was like, oh, I feel bad, and I made like 100 songs, and then within those 100 songs, I found this like common thread within them, which like kind of is making me chase the sound I'm going after right now. But all that to say, I think I also rediscovered like the sense of me that had been lost in the music, because along the way as well of like being once I had figured it out, and I'm like, oh, this is how you make a whole song. I think when I was a kid, I was like, the only way I know how to do this is if I'm like writing autobiography stories or about the way I feel. And then somewhere along the way, you realize like, oh, I don't have to always be honest blatantly or like bluntly honest. Like, I went to the store. It doesn't have to be that. It can be like the kangaroo went to the store. You know what I mean? And it's like the kangaroo can represent you or whatever the fuck, right? But it's like now but you're dipping your toe in an interesting pond, you know what I mean? Because it's like you're not telling the truth, but it is true. And so it's like it's this playground that I entered that I was playing on a lot, and like really exploring that side and telling stories and being funny and like being braggadocious and being like being like just trying all these different emotions and these different flavors and like being and anyway, I think and more importantly trying to I think make better songs versus tell my story. And so I think after that was I'd say the past like maybe 3 or 4 years as I was really doing that, just throwing paint at the wall and just seeing what I liked as a maker of songs. And then when I found that discovery of making those 100 songs from that painful place, that rediscovery of that like childlike wonder and like that fire that lived in me, I also rediscovered love for storytelling and like a desire to tell my story. So I'm being very, very like intentional right now again with trying to make that story the forefront. So if I dip my toe into that, that side of like, let me be metaphorical, let me do this, I'm being very careful with when I'm doing it. You know what I mean? And I'm trying to give it a lot more power back by doing it less, and giving a lot more intent to being like, hey, let me put myself out there more, let me raise the stakes, and let me be honest, because I think that's why I started it all.
You used the phrase chasing a sound in there, which I thought was, I like that idea. Like you have this idea in your head of what this sound is going to be and just trying to figure out how to get it out. Sounds good.
I've never felt that way before. When I first started having success in music, I almost like ran from that sound I was making, because quickly I noticed a lot of other people started doing it maybe shortly after I had done it, and I felt like I could see the reasons they were doing it was because it was working. And it just left such a poor taste in my mouth, and I was like, in my head of like, is that why I'm doing it? You know what I mean? And I just wanted to run as far away as possible from it, because I wanted to grow as an artist and like just grow in general. And I was like, if I stay here, I'm being stagnant, I'm not growing, which had some truth to it. And I'm really glad I did it, because it allowed me to go throw paint at the wall and try all these different sounds and ideas. But coming back now, I realized like when I made those 100 songs recently, I was like, and I found that common thread between them. I'm like, this is me, and those songs were me, and I need to just go more me. I don't need to look around anymore. I feel confident. I feel really comfortable with who I am as a person and a creative now. And like, I think when I first started making that, I didn't. And so now having that, and then now having all the tools that I did go, I feel like a character in a video game who like went out and did a bunch of side quests and then it's like back and like now back on the main adventure. And I think the biggest lesson I learned in those side quests was hey, like in a world of infinity, there's a lot of things that sound and dope and excite you. Like for me, like there's like, I love making boom bap shit, and I love making like experimental like electronic rap shit, and I love making anti-pop leaning singing shit, and I love making some pop songs, and I just like love all these flavors, and I love making like Travis Scott auto tune, like, but it's all different flavors, you know. And in order, I think, to be great at something, I think you have to decide. So in a world of infinity, I think I learned it is really important to like put blinders on and have a framework. And I think that rings true beyond just music. I think like a lot of things I've had a lot of success at in life has been because of those guardrails, which, coming from somebody who's telling you don't listen to those guardrails, is like, they're very powerful when done right, you know. So again, don't let people place those guardrails for you. You should decide where they are, and you should shut up and listen and find out where, you know, people who really love you and give a fuck and like are passionate are telling you to put those guardrails. And but then you got to come back and be like, but where's the me in all of this? And so that's what I think I found a really good balance of, is where my framework and my guardrails are, and an understanding of myself and what is me. And like now I'm trying to go the most me possible. Like I'm trying to put me in everything and like do it as much as I can without sacrificing quality. Because I think it's going to lead to something different. Like that's how you lead to very unique things and very inspirational things, and things that like are just potent pieces of art, because it's like nobody can be more you than you. And like if you go you, like no one's done that. So it's going to speak to somebody, and eventually you hit a threshold. Like it's one thing when you're first starting. My bad, I'm rambling.
Oh, you're good, man.
It's one thing when you're like first starting out and you're like a kid and you're like, is anyone going to like this? You know? And I think when you're first starting that, or you know, and you're in that early, and not even just being a kid, like I just dipped my toe into the filmmaking bag because I love storytelling right now, and I'm like, I do a lot of my own music videos, and like that's led to me wanting to do a lot more filmmaking now, and telling a story, having a conflict resolution, and understanding the structure, and it feels like songwriting, and it's like this new discovery. But within all that, I think you need to have more of a willingness when you're first starting out to look around and question what you're doing. But I think once you figure it out and you have signals telling you like, hey, you're really good at this. Like once you put a song out and 100, or, you know, 10 times someone's messaged you being like, I love this song. You know, this song is my favorite song. This song saved my life. Like once that threshold happens, I don't know what the number is, a couple times, a dozen times, hundreds of times. After thousands of times, you have to for sure be like, I've trusted my gut before, and because I trusted my gut, that's the reason these thousands of people felt this way. So in the future, I need to just trust that feeling, because I know it exists, and I know if I only, you know, if I do it purely with my judgment, I've tested it in the past of like people are gonna fuck with it, and whether they do or they don't is irrelevant at the end of the day. But if like that's what you're worried about, I think that's the place you should look, because you've already proven to yourself it's true.
So let's talk about your first drop with Gala. Why that song to release with us?
It's a song I made like 2 years ago, to be honest, and I never released until last week. And I didn't think it was going to see the light of day, but I just love it. And I came back to it. When right after actually I, you know, met everybody over at Gala and like was starting to think about what songs I should or shouldn't drop. Because I know I'm going to be doing some that are exclusives, and that was going to be one where I'm like, I never dropped this, but it could be a really cool exclusive and a good excuse to like make me put it out into the world. But then I just kept listening to it, and I'm like, I just want to share it, and I think it's because it came from that honest place, and I think it was one of the last things I made that came from that like before I stopped doing that for a little while at scale, like before I went a long period of time without like writing from that place. And so I really liked it.
2 years later, did you make any adjustments to it? Did you tweak it at all? Or just like, this is it?
No, that's it. And I'm a big believer in that kind of shit of like, you know, it's not about, you're going to find your processes, and like, it can always be better. That's the thing. There's no such thing as like it's done. It's just ready to show the world and move on. And I think that's how I think of ideas. I don't think, I mean, it's my opinion, but like I find I'm in this constant dance between making it better and more polished, and going more me and just being like, hey, I feel good and I need to move on. And honestly, sometimes to me, like my favorite pieces of art aren't the songs themselves or like a painting themselves or a film themselves. It's if you zoom out and you look at the artist's body of work, that's my favorite pieces of art. It's like if you look at a musician's catalog and you see the first thing they dropped and you can look all the way and see every little piece in the artwork and the songs and the videos and the shows and the merch and every little detail they did, and you can look at it all like zoomed out and you're just like looking at that picture. That's my favorite pieces of art. And so I think a lot of times I have this concept I call the creative life cycle, and it's like idea to reality. And I think the more you can come up with an idea and then bring it to life and make it a reality, the better you get at the art and at the craft you're working on. So for me, a lot of times I think it's not necessarily that it's done, but it's time for me to move on from that specific idea so I can grow again. And it's time to allow it to, because I don't think it exists until you put it into the world. Like it's almost like did a tree fall in the forest thing. It's like if you made something and you didn't show anyone, does it exist? And it's this weird paradox. It's like maybe, and like most artists argue, of course, and I do it for me, but I would argue it doesn't, because you're not really having it doesn't have a chance at life, because what's the point if there's no community, and what's the point if it can't inspire anybody or make anybody feel anything, you know, other than you? Then at the end of the day, you're kind of just, it's lost internally. And like, I don't think I'm right, but I think that's how I view it, and I think it's a cool way to view it, and a cool way to better your craft is allowing yourself to release it and move on over and over and over, complete those creative life cycle laps, and grow as an artist. So Firestarter was a song where I was like, this is cool. And another thing is I think sitting with something for too long, after 2 years, I'm not in that place anymore. I'm not in that place mentally, sonically, etc. Like Firestarter was one of the first songs I ever fully produced myself. Like I think we ended up replacing the drums or something, and like Iggy, my mixing engineer, who touches almost 90% of my songs, I think he might have replaced that and like done a really cool mix. But like that was a crazy moment for me to be like, oh, I can produce something from the ground up with the sounds, and then I can rap over it and put my voice over it and then sing over it. And I wasn't singing a lot at that time either, and it was like really experimental record for me at the time. So for all those reasons is why I decided to put it out.
I like it. You're making me want to go release art into the world.
That's the point. I'm so glad to hear that. That's really that's where my fire comes from right now, is like speaking to true artists, because like I think there's a lot of people who are misunderstood, and like that, not even misunderstood, just frustrated. Like at the beginning of this year, I was just so frustrated creatively, and like I don't want to feel that way again. And like I don't think you have to as an artist, you know. And you're an artist, you know what I mean? Like you make things and you bring them to life. And I think that if you can hear someone, you know, giving you an explanation of why you don't necessarily need to feel that frustration, I think it's like, I think it's a good thing to hear.
Nice, man. Well, I'm a fan. I'm glad that you decided to join Gala. I think this is going to be great. This is releasing today.
Yep.
We're pre-recording it, but it's releasing on Thursday, day your first drop. So good luck. I'm excited about it. This is going to be a fun ride, I think.
I'm excited to do a lot within this space too. We can talk about it in the future, but like I have a lot of ideas for like this world, and I appreciate y'all reaching out, because I've done a lot in this space, but it's been purely for creativity. Like I've done like NFT releases that no one knows about, and I just made them to practice it, creative life cycle, learn the tech, understand how it interacts with the physical and the creative world that I want to build, and like just learn it for in the future where I can do some really cool stuff. So I'm really excited, and like a lot of my favorite artists right now are like I'm re-looking at projects that they did, not just like musicians, but like there's this guy Tom Sachs. I'm like, or like just other random artists storytellers, I should say, that I'm really inspired by right now, and yeah, I'm excited to do my version of that, like as we keep going.
Yeah, when we first met, you told me about some of that stuff. I think I asked like, what do you know about NFTs, and you like dropped all that stuff on me. It's like, oh, Drex gets it.
Yeah. So I know too much for my own good, and sometimes I think you just need to get out of your own way and execute. Like speaking to Tom Sachs, my favorite quote right now is, "Ideas or creativity is the enemy," And a lot of times it's the ideas aren't the hard part, the creativity is not the hard part. It's getting out of your own way and executing. And execution is everything. And so I appreciate y'all at Gala because you definitely facilitate execution at a really high level.
Awesome. Thanks, man. We're trying.
No, for sure. It's a great.
We'll catch up soon, and you can tell us all about that stuff. The community is going to love that stuff.
Sounds good.